One of our core values, in our company is people as a source of our strength.
That was Meaghan Frank from Dr. Frank's Winery in the Finger Lakes. That was just one of the values we talked about that Meaghan shared about herself and the winery. You're not going to want to miss this episode. There's tons of information that's packed. It's a great episode to think and listen. Enjoy.
And I feel very honored that you're doing this with me first, because you're the first winery in the Finger Lakes in Keuka that I want to explore.
Mm-hmm.
So what I'm trying to do is I'm testing a theory about terroir, and it includes a lot of things. And what I'm trying to understand is what are the values of the winery?
Mm-hmm.
What are the values of the people at the winery? And how does that relate to who they are? And does Keuka Lake have its own, I call it Valoir, so meshing the two. Is there a Valoir to Keuka Lake or the Finger Lakes? Is that different from what's happening in Virginia or even Texas or in California or other places? So for me, it's a little journey of that, and I thank you for coming along on the ride. And that was sort of like a split off of this idea that I've had. So thank you for doing that. So with that, this podcast is free flowing. It's really about your core values journey. Do you feel like you've got an understanding of core values, and how does that relate? It's kind of a trick question, because I've been reading and looking, and I've been going to your winery for years. So it's just that exploration. I'm very excited about that, if you can't tell.
Thank you, Tom. And I love it, your background here.
Oh yeah. And I usually do audio here, but I was like this one, and I apologize for being sort of a geek here, but it was very important to me. I was a bit nervous doing this, and I was like, so those wines I got when I went to the Wings and Wheels, which I go. And I stopped up, and I basically sold some Arcatzelli for you. So there was a family in front of in front of us, and they were talking about it, and I grabbed it. So that's a Saperavi, the Arcatzelli, and there's a Blanc de Blanc back there.
Okay, nice.
And I was talking about it. The Arcatzelli, not many people know about that. So there was a family in front of us, and I had my little dog with me, and we were talking, and I was talking about the Arcatzelli, and the way I described it was that Gewürztraminer and Riesling got in a fight, and Chardonnay is refereeing.
I love that. Oh my goodness, that's phenomenal. I'm gonna have to write that down. I'll credit you, Thomas.
It was awesome, because as soon as I started talking about it, she ran and she told her husband, she's like, "Hold on!" She ran and she grabbed the bottle of it, and she came back and she bought it. So
oh my gosh,
I'm proud to say that I've contributed to your Arcatzelli in a very small way. So
that's fantastic.
Yeah,
I love that. And that's so much about this grape is really introducing people to it, right? I mean, it has 8,000 years of history in Georgia. This single variety, it's the oldest grape in the world, right? It's so cool.
I'm sure you know this book, right?
I do. Yes, that's fantastic.
Well, I was flipping through it the other day, and knowing that we were doing this, and I happened to flip on the Arcatzelli.
Oh, nice.
This book, it's for people who are listening, it's Wine Grapes. It's the Jancis Robinson sort of compendium. It's amazing. But if you flip to Arcatzelli, guess who's mentioned in there? Konstantin Frank introduced the variety to New York State's Finger Lakes region. So you guys are in this, which is incredible.
That's great. Oh man, Jancis, she's she's my idol. I would love to meet her in person one day. It would be a dream.
Yeah, she does a lot of interesting stuff. So,
yeah, absolutely.
So I know a lot of people can understand the history, and they can read all about it, and they can listen all about it, and there's a lot of great YouTube videos about that. But I was hoping that maybe I can ask and see if we can get a little bit underneath that. So can you tell me, what do you think are some of those values that you've grown up with, and how does that relate to how you do your work every day?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been involved in the family business for 12 years now. So, I've loved working with my dad, Fred. It's been really an honor, to be involved. And it's not something I had always wanted to do, growing up. But something that really attracted me about the wine industry generally is the fact that, there's so many, and I know you understand this, Thomas, there's so many iterations to what the industry is, right? There's history, there's science, there's art, there's community, there's, food, everything is all kind of in this bubble together. And so there's so many different directions you can go with it. But a really important part of sort of my journey into wine and into the family business has been this tie to our community and to our heritage and to our sort of company culture. And, that for me has been very rewarding to kind of build upon, what my great grandfather did, what my grandfather did, now what my father is currently doing, and to help kind of continue that. We have a really fantastic team. Many of them have been with us a very, very long time. So it's almost this, this community building that I think has been one of the most unexpected joys of being a part of the business.
Why do you say it's unexpected?
I guess it's just not something I thought a lot about, to be honest with you, prior to, when you don't have sort of that intimate experience of working day to day with people and really understanding that everyone has, different skills and different specialties, and to like listen and make sure that their ideas are being heard, that, they're able to flourish and thrive in their environment. I think it's just not something I had thought a lot about, prior to being in this role. And for me, I'm very lucky, I'm in a position at a fairly young age where I would not be in this part of my career had I, joined another business. Like I'm uniquely lucky in this, younger stage of my life to be where I am and to have the responsibility that I have. And so that I think it just comes in time of that realization, of feeling that gratitude. But anyway, I'm not sure to answer your question, Thomas,
No, no,
but
no. Hey, listen, no, it's just a conversation. I'm just
yeah.
curious. Yeah, I think that's really cool. The other thing is that I've sort of come to appreciate, as you can tell from these gray whiskers. This is my fall look, by the way. I grow this and then I get rid of it.
Nice.
My kids like it. I don't think my wife does, but it's just for now. It's fun.
Nice.
Is the importance and sort of like I almost sort of have always felt it, but I didn't really see a lot of the evidence of it until I started, progressing a little bit further in my career. And the word that you mentioned, which I'm curious to hear more about, is culture.
Hmm. Hmm.
Right. So to me, it's like, even a lot of the organizations that I've worked at, I've been lucky to see a lot of different companies, through the
Hmm.
type of work that I was doing. But that
Hmm.
one unifying thing is sort of the cultures,
Yeah.
that they have. So
Hmm.
tell me more about like, what do you mean by culture, and how has that
Yeah,
impacted you?
absolutely. Yeah. So, one of our core values, in our company is people as a source of our strength.
Okay.
And so really understanding that the people who are with us, who are part of our sort of extended family within the company, they're the most important people, right? Because they're the ones that care, that are doing the work, the blood, sweat, and tears that goes into every bottle of wine, that goes into selling every bottle. Like there's a tremendous amount of effort. And so I think for us, it's this dynamic of empowering the individual, but also the collection. So we do a variety of things, to help with that. A big part or a big passion, I guess, of mine is, really making sure that people feel empowered and feel respected and appreciated in their role. So one thing that we focus on tremendously is education. So I know, Thomas, you're in your WSCT journey, which is phenomenal. I'm so excited for
Yes.
you. That's been a big part of my story too. And for us to be able to empower our team through education and growth, personal and professional, has been, a really, really fun way to sort of make sure everyone feels empowered. So we just had our team completed level one as a team. Many of them have gone through two and three as well, but it's we're progressing onto this journey sort of together. So, within education, I think there's a lot we can do to empower our team. But we also have, a great group of people like on our team. We have a yoga meditation instructor who, she
Really?
does take things too. Yeah. Lauren is her name. And so we have a weekly meditation circle that we do on Fridays. There we do all team meetings where we highlight, the accomplishments of each department. We do shout outs, just making sure that that's really a part of our culture, is really important. We launched a few months ago a shadowing program. So literally trying to walk in someone else's shoes that's in a completely different department as yours. So we piloted it with our sort of leadership team. So you would be kind of, going with, say, the vineyard manager if you were the hospitality manager, and you'd switch, throughout the month. And there's still some more work we have to do with that program to launch it like company wide, but things like that have been just examples of the ways we're really thinking about how can we, with so many different departments and so many different aspects to our business, how can we unify our team and build this sort of empowered culture for everybody?
Well, that is. Thank you for sharing that. That's really amazing, and I'm very excited that you're talking about that because when organizations experience a significant amount of growth,
Hmm.
usually what happens is they tend to fall apart after a point, right? It goes in a different direction, and it's because they don't put the foundation of that culture in, and what does it really mean? So by you saying that, I think that's very, very insightful in terms of
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing there and how you're building the organization for the next 150 years on the lake. So that is pretty incredible. So thank you for sharing that. And I think people who will hear this,
Hmm.
I think it'll be very inspiring because we have a lot of entrepreneurs, we have a lot of other people that are listen to this and sort of are active in this. So I think that is something that they're going to be very, very excited to hear, not just about the great wines, right? So, so that what other are you had mentioned that the values people as a source of our strength are these values
Hmm.
that you actually have codified and espoused that are out there or
Yeah, so we have and I'm learning, along with everybody else. So I've listened to a few episodes of your podcast and I've already learned so much, Thomas, because
oh, that's
like
cool.
the
So
inspiration is
as I
really
joke with my other friend, I'm
fantastic.
like, you're the one listener that I have.
No. It was fantastic content. And I mean for us, like it's a work in progress, right? It's all about listening, and it's all about, trying something new. And, I think I'm very happy that my dad is willing to kind of go on this journey as well, because going change is hard and
Yeah.
trying new things is hard, and I do appreciate that about him. So, um
Well,
what was your question?
There's a great analogy because what's happening by you doing that, the roots are going deep, right?
Hmm.
And they're getting strength, they're getting nutrients, they're
Yep,
solidifying who they are. And by doing
absolutely.
that, I think your dad is being very wise to
Mm.
sort of investigate sort of that area and do that. So it's a
Hmm.
beautiful thing. But to your point, it's not easy, right? Because
Hmm.
we know it's always about the margins.
Yes.
How much is the
Hmm.
equipment? How much margin are we doing in this, right? How much are these bottles costing? All so there's always
Exactly.
so many, complexities that we have to figure out, and then but put that time in to build that root system is very important. So I'm very
Absolutely.
happy that your dad does that.
Yeah. No, thank you. Yeah, and it's really easy. We talk about the rocks and the sand, and it's really easy to just be in the sand all the time, day to day, just like putting out fires left and right. And just to focus on some of these rocks within our team is really important, again, to like look back and have that perspective. But to answer your previous question about our values, we do have a list of our values in our handbook, and it's something each new employee, has to sign off on as like, you're coming into our family. This is what we believe in. And this is, what we're trying to do as a team, and we need you to be a part of it, basically.
Oh, that's very
Um,
cool.
yeah, so I mean, I think there's more work to be done. We're exploring lots of different exciting things for our off season. We have a variety of, we call them pillars, that we focus on, like different areas to sort of improve, and they're linked to efficiency, performance and things like that, but it's also this other sort of value of making sure that people are feeling appreciated and empowered again. So It's definitely not a one person job. I mean, I think it's everyone's responsibility within our company to uphold these values. So another big one that we focus on is integrity. So, having integrity in all that you do, when you're here at work is a really, really important part of, our foundation. And it's something that, has been sort of passed down through generations. And to think about what integrity is, it's doing what you say you're going to do. It's being honest about, what you can bring to the table and what you can't. It's giving honest feedback, having integrity with your words. Respect is another one for us, making sure everyone feels respected and speaks in a respectful way. So these are all things that, we're not perfect, but we're striving, for a place where people can feel comfortable where they work, to feel empowered, to feel like they're being listened to. So yeah,
Well,
that's
perfection gets in the way of progress, right? So it's, I think if we strive for the perfection, we get in our own way,
absolutely. I
which
agree with
is
that.
kind
I
of
always
crazy.
say that progress, not perfection. That's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
my mantra. That's awesome, Thomas.
Well,
Yeah.
the interesting thing, and why I'm so happy to talk to you and hear a lot of these things, because I think, and again, maybe I'm just getting too foo-fooey, I don't know, but I think it actually ends up in the bottle.
Hmm.
Right. I
Hmm.
think that there's something that happens that when there's intention, I think
Yep.
it ends up in the bottle. And there's a growing wine region in New Jersey and even in New
Absolutely.
York, right?
Hmm.
And when there's new wineries, it's not necessarily that the end product is going to be compatible with California or Argentina
Yep.
or any place else. However, you can see and feel and almost taste
Hmm.
the intention to bring better quality, right? And I think that
Absolutely.
that's there, and when you hear that,
Hmm.
I think that's very important for folks.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the thing is, I mean, why are we in this business, right? Like we're making people happy, we're bringing joy, especially, I mean, we're speaking at a day where it's a very contentious time in our country, right? Um, Everyone can sort of come to the table and agree that, having a nice meal with a glass of wine, I mean, there's really nothing better. So I think kind of remembering that perspective of why are we here? Why are we doing this? To understand that it's really for for others, it's to make other people happy, it's to bring joy to other people, and to try to have some fun while we're doing that. That's the dream, right? That's the dream.
It always is the dream.
Yeah.
Uh, uh, I'm curious about something else when I was researching some things, and I was hoping
Hmm.
that you can educate me. So
Sure.
in my career, I've always been very successful, and I don't know why this is. Whenever I had
Hmm.
sort of like a female manager or mentor,
Uh-huh.
I don't know what it is. I don't know why.
Hmm.
I've always been very, very lucky to have that.
Hmm.
And I was wondering, we hear a lot, Dr. Frank, we hear a lot about this, but
Hmm.
I know there's other people that helped him become very successful back then. And I was wondering if you can share a little bit of that. And maybe
Hmm.
a follow-up would be if you were to reflect on that for a second, how do you think that
Hmm.
impacted or they impacted you and who you've
Hmm.
become as a leader at Dr.
Hmm.
Frank's?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
How's that
Yeah,
for a
I
loaded
mean,
question?
I know it's a great question, Thomas, because certainly, behind every strong man, there's a strong woman, right? That's very, very true. And for me, a huge inspiration, for me coming on board to the family business was, we're other family members, my great grandmother Eugenia, who was the wife of Constantine. She was an extremely strong woman, had lived through a tremendous amount of hardship in her life, with the Russian Revolution, both world wars, immigrating to America, not speaking any English, just right alongside Constantine. And for her to be able to sacrifice so much of herself and to be work alongside Constantine, literally grafting, working in the vineyard, hand labeling every bottle, receiving guests. And this wasn't necessarily her dream. She was
Mm,
supporting her husband. She was supporting, someone who she knew was onto something. Like she did know that, and I think she did believe that. But again, it was that sacrifice that I take so much inspiration from. And then my grandmother as well, Margaret, who was just the warmest, most generous person, just a huge, she was kind of the heart and soul, of the company. And I had this very strong connection, with both of them. And to um when we tell the story of our family history, it's so often it's Constantine, it's my grandfather Willie, it's my dad, which it should be, right? That they're all very important people within our sort of family fabric and the company. But there's so many people that have been left out of our story. So it's been really exciting for me to be able to introduce actually a line of wines that's paying tribute to the women of our family who have helped build the business. So we call it our Helm series. So sort of at the helm, if you will.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, and each letter is represented. So we have my two great aunts and my great grandmother, my grandmother. So Hilda for the start of Helm, Eugenia is the E, Lena is the L. She's my great aunt, and Margaret is my grandmother. So the four wines, basically they're highlighting very, very special vineyard sites or special blends, and they're telling their story in a very tangible way. So to be able to tell, someone's legacy with just a story is really great, but to be able to tell someone's story with something physical is like, I feel like that's even better. So to Eugenia's point, I never met Constantine. He passed away way before I was born, but I did know Eugenia very well. She passed away. She was 97 when she passed. And so
Wow.
I was like a teenager. And so she had a very big sort of presence in my early life. And we're making the wines also in the style of the person, in their personality. So
Oh, that's
Eugenia,
interesting. Would
it's a bit fun.
explain that a little bit for people who may not understand viticulture and things
Yeah.
like that. Help us understand that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a generous interpretation, right, of their personality. But so take Eugenia, for instance. Eugenia, it's a single vineyard block of Riesling planted in 1968. So one of our oldest plantings of Riesling, one of the oldest plantings of Riesling in the country, actually. Um, so this older block, they say old vines make great wines, right?
Right.
The older vines typically produce less fruit, but the fruit that they are producing is very, very complex and it tends to have very low yields. So, when we're picking this block, there's a very, very high content of shale in the soil. So you're
Mm.
typically picking up this more mineral focus in the wines, which, there's not a ton of research to basically confirm that that's what's happening. The roots aren't literally sucking up the
Right.
minerals,
Yeah, yeah.
but something is happening because there is a correlation there. So it's a very, very strong mineral focus. When the wine is fermenting, and we're fermenting it to complete dryness. So it's one of our driest Rieslings that we make. And to have that sort of like unassuming at first glance, more austere, more linear style is what we're going for with that wine. And to really tell Eugenia's story. As a juxtaposition, Margaret, who was my grandmother, I spoke about her, the wife of Willie, who started our sparkling winery. He really launched, yeah, he have a sparkling bottle right there, Thomas.
Yeah, yeah. For those, I'm showing the Blanc de Blanc here.
That's awesome. Yeah, so he was a very, very important part of sort of building upon Constantine's more experimental legacy, where he had so many different grape varieties here. He was working with lots of different rootstocks, different clones, laying the groundwork for what would become, world-class wine region. Willie was a businessman, and he was somebody who was trying to take the Finger Lakes name and creating a brand for it. And Margaret was alongside him every step of the way. And again, that sacrifice of just this was not her dream. This was not, something that she worked towards in a professional way, but that she just had this belief in what Willie was doing and this belief in what the winery was. And just to be able to just give 100% of yourself to that, I think is just really, it's incredible. So she was just to Eugenia, she was a tough woman, right? A seer. She it was hard to get her to smile, but she had so much love for her family. Like that was very evident. It's just, she had a different life, Whereas Margaret, she was like the quintessential grandmother. Like when you got a hug from her, if you could feel it the rest of the day. Like she was
Mm.
just the warmest, sunniest, most loving, generous person. And so for her, our vineyard site is on the east side of Seneca, where we have additional vineyard acreage. And it's a very warm site. So it's the warmest site in the whole of the Finger Lakes. It's called the Banana Belt. No bananas grown, but a little warmer. And so because it's going to lend itself to that sunnier, warmer expression, the Margaret single vineyard Riesling is sourced from there. So
Is it a
it's
Gruner
meant to
Veltliner or
be.
is it a Riesling?
It's actually a Riesling. Yeah, it's
Oh,
meant
okay.
to be a little bit more tropical, more expressive, more open. And so tasting the two side by side, because we like to harvest them around the same day, fermenting them with,
Ooh.
if not the same yeast strain, a very similar one. So you're just really picking up just the site, and the personality. And I think that's been a really fun
Oh,
project.
that's Megan. You're making me want to jump in my car and drive up there.
Come on over, Thomas. We're open.
I'll be there in 3.5 hours.
Okay. I love it.
So if we were gonna make a Megan blend,
Hmm.
oh, what? See, as you're talking about that, I'm curious. What would how would you describe your wine if you were gonna do it?
Yeah, I don't deserve that. I don't think. I feel like that's
Megan,
not
how
something
dare
that's not
you?
on my radar. Yeah. I really don't know. It's a good question. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's just not something I've ever thought about.
Well, if I may suggest, maybe one day as you're touring the
Uh-huh.
vineyards, maybe have a think about it because
Yeah.
I feel like that
Hmm.
that is coming through what you
Hmm.
do there. And if you bring consciousness to it, I just
Hmm.
think maybe more people will sort of feel that and understand that and radiate that.
Sure. Well, thank you, Thomas. Yeah, I'll think about it as I'm perusing the blocks.
So if I ever see you, I'm going to yell, "Hey, what did you come up with?"
Yeah, exactly. That sounds good. We'll keep in touch about that.
So those were a couple of values that you say are in the handbook, which is
Hmm.
kind of cool. Do you see it in what people are doing every day at the vineyard and how they're interacting?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, I think it's everyone has moments, right? Everyone has their days where they're not feeling good. They have things going on at home or what have you. So I think to give, some grace for that, but also hold individuals accountable to our values is it's important, and it's something that takes a lot of time. And it's part of, being a part of a community, and part of a company is to kind of to make sure that, that we're all abiding by these,
Well,
same principles.
four generations and building that culture
Mhm.
is something that, to your point, is, and you know it, you see it every day, is not an easy
Mhm.
thing, right? And especially when it grows. So
Mhm.
I think by your articulation of this and what we're talking about is
Mhm.
pretty amazing.
Mhm.
If I may, if I was to ask you for 3 words, just 3 words
Mhm.
on what you feel the region means,
Mm.
right? What would those 3 words be to you?
Mm. Mm. Yeah, it's a good question. Yeah, I mean, I thought a lot recently because I'm involved in a regional organization called the Finger Lakes Wine Alliance.
Oh, cool.
And it's a great group of, individuals, and we have a wonderful executive director. Her name's Kyle Palaschek. And basically the whole group, we're really trying to push the Finger Lakes as a region, and particularly through like sort of the gatekeepers with the trade and media. And obviously, as you mentioned, Thomas, I mean, there's a wine region in every single state in the country.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
which is fantastic because it's helping to build local ambassadors, and then those individuals are going to explore, different wines throughout the world. So I think it's all very, very important. But it also means that, there's never going to be a decrease in competition, right? We do need as a region, and as sort of an area, we need to identify who we are and what differentiates us. And so lakes, water, I guess could be a word. I mean, that's a really, really important part of who we are, and uh basically why we can do what we can do. If you go a few miles outside of sort of the watershed area, vinifera, the European varieties, will not survive because it just is too cold here. The lakes are moderating our climate. They're warming it up, in our very, very cold winters, and they're helping to cool it down, in our warmer summers. So that
Yeah.
moderation is
That
very much the
continentality,
key.
that sort of key.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's that WCT. Oh, you got your book right there.
Yeah, I
That's
got my
awesome.
books and
That's
everything.
awesome, Thomas. I'm so excited for you. That's wonderful. So I would say that's a very important part of why we can do what we do here. Um, if for my second word, maybe Riesling.
Ooh.
Riesling, because that's our sort of flagship grape. It's not all that we do as a winery or as a region, but it is the grape that has helped put us on the world stage, and it's where we can compete, with the best of the best. So Riesling would be another. And then I would say community. This is where we're a area that has virtually no outside investment. We are pretty much all family owned businesses in the region, which is really, really unique. Most of the wine regions you would hear about who, have garnered acclaim have very large investments, from individuals who are coming in with a lot of money, building wineries, with a few $1 million. And it's just, we don't have that culture here in the Finger Lakes. It's very much, you know, building, starting small, slow growth after many years, multi-generational family businesses. When you're coming and as you have visited Thomas, the area, I'm sure you've seen this when you come to a winery, you're very often going to interact with winemakers, owner, like everyone is just involved, very, very involved, and it's a closely held business for most people. So I would say community, but I'm trying to think maybe authenticity. I'm going to change it to authenticity because that is a very unique thing for our region. I think to have that
That's very
really
cool. Thank you
authentic
for
feel.
sharing that. I will share with you one of my most hated commercials, TV commercials that I've had. And this I want to say is maybe 10 or 15 years into my Finger Lakes experience.
Uh-huh.
I tend to be a fan of like the Food Channel, all that kind of stuff. I love it. And then at one point I saw a commercial for the Finger Lakes.
Okay.
And I got so mad because I was
Oh
like, the
no.
secret is out. It's going to get flooded. I
That's
was
so
so
funny.
upset. I'm like, oh no. So
I love it. Yeah, I think it's funny because we're so seasonal, right? So we're largely a region that's open year round, like most businesses are open year round. Maybe not as many of the restaurants or accommodations, but most of the wineries are open year round. So our busy, May through October is very, very busy because a lot of people are coming out for lake activities, hiking, things like that. But we do have this downtime. So I would say, the secret is still out, or still kind of held in for the winter. The winter time in the Finger Lakes, I think, is the most beautiful time. You are basically, it's just a very relaxing time. Everyone has, time to sort of gather together. A lot of the great restaurants are still open. Like I highly recommend people to visit any time of year, but the winter, I think that's the secret. We'll have
yeah,
to get you up here in the winter,
oh,
Thomas.
I listen. I get up there every single chance I get, and by your
Nice.
invitation earlier, I'm leaving as soon as we're done here. So,
Okay, perfect.
but
We'll have you get in the Margaret chills ready
oh,
for
there
you.
we go. Well, it is a pretty amazing place, and that's why
Mhm.
I'm so excited about that region and what's happening there, and I'm very happy to have you here. Just
Thank you.
a couple more things, and then I'll
Hmm.
let you go because I have a long
Sure.
drive ahead of me to get up there.
Yeah, that's right. Nice.
So, given what we talked about, I'm even more curious about this. If you had to
Mm-hmm.
say, who are your heroes
Mm.
growing up, and it could be anybody,
Yeah.
who would those heroes be?
Yeah, it's a good I mean, just the first person that pops in my head is my mom. My mom is a very, very strong woman. She was the first woman in her family to go to college, and then she went on to go to law school.
Oh wow.
She was our town judge growing up and had her own practice. Yeah, she just really was a trailblazer, in her field and in a very male-dominated field. Um, so I really take a lot of inspiration from her, and she was very, very encouraging of all of us. I have two siblings, to really follow our passions, and never sell ourselves short. I know that sounds like cliche, but it's these like lessons that I really took from her. And I had a tendency to be sort of maybe like a little obsessive about making sure that everything was correct and perfect. And she would just remind me always, like, just do the best you can for right now. And I still tell that to myself. Like, it's just you know, these words that are still really important to me. So I would say definitely my mom, is just a very foundational hero. My dad as well has been a true hero for me. Working with him, having just another dimension to our relationship has been really rewarding. I don't know if you've met my dad, Thomas, but
No.
he's a little more stoic, and he's, I would say, a man of a few words, but when he does speak, it's like really impactful. Like he
That's kind of like the Riesling grapes, the 68 grapes, right? They're
Yes,
not big yield,
exactly.
but they've got a lot to
Unassuming at first
say.
sight. Exactly. So both my parents have been really big inspirations. And then you picked up a book before, Jancis Robinson. When I started getting into the wine industry, I would videos. She had a show, I think it was in the 80s or the
On
90s.
the BBC, right?
Yeah, on the BBC. And she had this way of interviewing individuals and winemakers and really getting to the heart of, what the wine was all about, what the region was all about. And I really like that helped inspire me to really go into the industry, to be honest. It was a later decision. I was probably 19. I was in college and taking a few viticulture enology, wine appreciation classes, and just sort of fell into it. And Jancis was a very early person that I was exposed to, and felt like, okay, well, if she can do it, maybe there's space for another woman to kind of enter into the industry. And I hadn't been exposed, besides just my family members. So those are the ones that come up to the
Oh,
top
she's
of
a
my head, but
trailblazer.
she is.
It's unbelievable. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
I think there's plenty of room, and it's probably really good for the profession if there was more females that came in
Yes,
and sort of, yeah, there's no doubt about that in my opinion.
absolutely. That's
If there
great.
was a like one or two key takeaways that somebody would take from this conversation we're having, what do you hope that they might be?
Hmm. Key takeaways. Yeah, I would say, hmm. I mean, supporting your local businesses is a really, I think, important way, especially as we come into the holidays, the shop small attitude. It's something that I've thought a lot about, especially in recent times, where you can get anything from anywhere, right? I mean, you could
Yeah.
truly, Amazon delivers from all over the world. But when you support someone in your local economy, it makes a difference, in the life of those people and the people that they employ. And to have that ripple effect, I think is really, really key. So to be able to almost like vote with your wallet, like it's something that I think about a lot with my own personal choices is, you know, who are the businesses that I'm giving money to, that I'm supporting, that I'm buying from? Maybe it's a little bit more expensive than buying from Amazon to like go to the local pharmacy, or go, get a gift from the local gift shop. But like that money is staying in our community. So I know we haven't really touched on that, but that is something I think about. And us being a local business owner, I think it's important to remember that when you do that, it does have a very positive effect, you
No,
know.
I agree with that 1,000%, and that is the lifeblood of who we are. So I always try to go to the
Hmm.
Cinnamon Stick, always try to go to Breezers,
Oh,
I
that's
always go to
nice.
Union
Yeah.
Block, I always visit you guys.
That's
I always
awesome,
try to make
Thomas.
sure that we
You have your
support that.
circuit.
Yeah, well, because if you aren't supported, then
Yep,
it's not there.
exactly.
And there's even other things like I remember, yeah, this is interesting, like they talked about the environmental impact of
Hmm.
Dr. Frank's even way back then when they talked
Mm.
about the grafting. Because,
Hmm.
and one of the reasons that it was mentioned, and it really I was surprised because even way back then they were saying, you know what, we can have an environmental impact because we don't want to
Mm.
use a lot of chemicals to
Hmm.
combat phylloxera. And if we have
Absolutely.
the right sort of stock grafted on, we can reduce that impact and have sort
Hmm.
of better quality. So I
Hmm.
think all of that sort of bleeds together about understanding the region, understanding what's going on, supporting the
Hmm.
region in terms of
Yeah.
what it does. So I think that's a great
Hmm.
point.
Yeah, absolutely. That's wonderful. Yeah, and then one other thing I would touch on, I mean, it's been a really big part of my trajectory, into the family business is thinking about legacy. And what do you think about, with your own legacy, with your, family's legacy, people that came before you? There's a great quote. I don't know if you follow any Broadway or
Well, this is a separate
Hamilton.
conversation we're going to
Yeah.
have.
Um, Hamilton had a really great quote, that legacy is, I think it's sowing the seeds for a garden you never get to see. I might have to look that up, but it's something to that effect.
Well, your
The
great grandfather was planting things that he
Yes,
knew you were going to
yes.
see. He didn't know you, but he knew that you were going to see that.
Exactly. And that's the thing with vineyards, and that's why you see so many family owned, sort of family owned wineries, is because you literally will not reap the benefits of the vineyard that you're planting today. It'll be the next generation, it'll be the generation after that. So this very long-term vision, and I think thinking about what you want your legacy to be, for me, that's a question I ask myself if I have a young child, and to think about, like, it just kind of grounds you, and it's something I don't have obviously an answer to, but
I know. That's why I
it's
asked
just
you, what
a
kind of wine would we have for
I
you? So
know. No, honestly, I've never thought about that. And it's sort of almost like embarrassing to me because I'm like, I haven't done enough for that. But
no, I don't think
um,
that's embarrassing at all. I think that's incredible awareness because you're right. Most people don't do that. So you are
yeah.
already ahead of the game. Think about it from that
Mm-hmm.
perspective.
Sure, sure. But yeah, I think definitely thinking about legacy and who you want to be, what do you want to be remembered for, I guess. And it's something that I think about often too.
Wow. Well, listen, I can't thank you enough for doing this. This has been
Thank you,
really a pleasure for
Thomas.
me. It really, for somebody who has enjoyed the region, who enjoys your family's products, it really was a joy to do this, and I can't thank you enough.
Oh, thank you, Thomas. The pleasure was mine. So we'll see you up here for some Riesling and some other wines. So that sounds good.
Maybe in 4 hours. I don't know.
4 hours. Perfect. Come on up.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Thomas.